never freeze up. It's just the water's constantly flowing through them, and no matter what temperature, it never freezes. I gotta fill up jugs now. I can't just sit here and talk about water all day. I gotta get...
Picture this. A man who could survive the harshest Alaskan winters, climb treacherous cliffs with his bare hands, and hunt wild game in temperatures that would kill most people. Brought to his knees not by nature's fury, but by a single helicopter ride. Atz Lee Kilcher was once Alaska's most beloved wilderness survivalist. For over a decade, millions of viewers watched him defy death itself on Discovery Channel's Alaska: The Last Frontier. But behind the rugged exterior and death-defying stunts lay a story of tragedy, legal battles, and family secrets that would ultimately destroy everything he'd built. Today, we're diving deep into the shocking downfall of a reality TV icon. From a near-fatal 40-foot cliff fall that should have killed him, to the illegal hunting scandal that changed everything, to the heartbreaking divorce that shattered fans' hearts worldwide. This is the untold story of how Alaska's toughest man lost it all. Stay with me, because what you're about to discover will change everything you thought you knew about the Kilcher family. To understand Atz Lee's dramatic fall from grace, we need to journey back to where it all began, the unforgiving wilderness of Homer, Alaska, where legends are born and broken with equal measure. Born on August 26, 1977, Atz Lee Kilcher entered this world not in a hospital, but in one of America's last true frontiers. His father, Atz Kilcher, a Vietnam veteran turned folk singer, had already established the family homestead 80 years earlier on the shores of Kachemak Bay. This wasn't just a home, it was a fortress against the modern world, a place where survival wasn't a TV show concept, but a daily reality. The Kilcher name carried weight in Alaska long before reality TV existed. Atz Lee's sister, Jewel Kilcher, had already conquered the music world, selling over 30 million albums and earning multiple Grammy nominations. Music flowed through the family's veins like glacial water, pure, powerful, and impossible to ignore. But while Jewel chose stages and spotlights, Atz Lee chose something far more dangerous: the call of the wild. Growing up on 600 acres of pristine Alaskan wilderness meant learning lessons that no classroom could teach. By age 10, Atz Lee could track a moose through fresh snow, build a fire in a blizzard, and read weather patterns like ancient scripture. The homestead wasn't just their address, it was their university, their church, and their proving ground all rolled into one. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Like his grandfather Yule before him, Atz Lee felt the pull of the outside world. In his early 20s, he packed his guitar and left the homestead behind, chasing dreams of musical stardom across the lower 48 states. For years, he played dive bars and coffee shops, sleeping in his truck and living on ramen noodles, convinced that success lay somewhere beyond the Alaskan horizon. Then came the realization that would change everything. After years of wandering, Atz Lee had an epiphany that would define the rest of his life. The farm where he was raised wasn't just home, it was truly the last frontier, a place where authentic living still existed in a world increasingly dominated by artificial experiences. He returned to Alaska a changed man. With his bare hands, he built a cabin that would become his sanctuary. He married Jane, a fellow music lover and commercial fisherwoman who shared his passion for authentic living. Together, they created what seemed like the perfect Alaskan love story. When Discovery Channel launched Alaska: The Last Frontier in 2011, they weren't just creating another reality show, they were documenting a disappearing way of life. Atz Lee became the show's breakout star, the fearless adventurer who made cliff climbing and bear hunting look like weekend hobbies. Viewers were mesmerized by his calm confidence in situations that would terrify Navy SEALs. For 11 seasons, Atz Lee embodied everything America romanticized about frontier living. He was the modern-day mountain man, proof that in an age of smartphones and social media, true self-reliance was still possible. His Instagram filled with breathtaking photos of hunting expeditions, cabin-building projects, and tender family moments that painted the picture of an idyllic wilderness life. The accident that changed everything. June 2015. The Alaskan summer was in full swing, with nearly 20 hours of daylight providing endless opportunities for adventure. Atz Lee, now 37 and at the peak of his physical condition, decided to explore Otter Cove, a remote area known for its stunning vistas and treacherous terrain. But as we're about to discover, even the most carefully constructed reality can shatter in an instant. He brought along his friend, Mark, a seasoned outdoorsman who knew the dangers of Alaska's wilderness as well as anyone. What happened next would haunt Atz Lee for the rest of his life. As darkness finally claimed the Alaskan sky, one of the few hours when the summer sun actually sets, the two men found themselves navigating unfamiliar terrain in rapidly deteriorating visibility. The coastline around Otter Cove is notorious among locals, gorgeous during the day, deadly in the dark. Sheer cliffs drop into icy waters with no warning, and the rocky terrain can shift underfoot without notice. In a split second that seemed to stretch into eternity, Atz Lee's foot found empty air where solid ground should have been. The fall from that 40-foot cliff wasn't just a tumble, it was a catastrophic plunge that by all rights should have killed him instantly. The impact was devastating. His left arm shattered on contact with the rocky shore below, the bone splintering in multiple places. But that was just the beginning. The force of the fall drove broken ribs into both lungs, puncturing them and filling his chest cavity with blood. His hips fractured, his ankles twisted beyond recognition, and internal injuries threatened to shut down his vital organs. Mark's quick thinking saved Atz Lee's life. In the middle of the Alaskan wilderness with no cell phone coverage for hundreds of miles, Mark's satellite phone became a lifeline to the outside world. The Coast Guard helicopter that arrived seemed like something out of a movie, a metallic angel descending from the midnight sun to snatch a dying man from the jaws of death. The medical team that stabilized Atz Lee during that helicopter ride later said they'd never seen someone survive injuries that severe. The flight to Anchorage took what felt like hours, with paramedics working frantically to keep him alive as his blood pressure dropped and his breathing became increasingly labored. Jane received the phone call every wilderness wife dreads at 2:47 a.m. The voice on the other end was clinical, professional, terrifying. "Mrs. Kilcher, your husband has been in a serious accident. You need to get to the hospital immediately." What followed were the longest months of the Kilcher family's lives. Atz Lee spent weeks in intensive care, his body broken but his spirit somehow intact. The surgeries seemed endless. Pins in his arms, plates in his hips, tubes draining fluid from his lungs. Jane never left his side, sleeping in uncomfortable hospital chairs and learning medical terminology she never wanted to know. The recovery process was brutal. This was a man who had spent his entire adult life in constant motion, climbing, hunting, building, exploring. Now he could barely lift a coffee cup without excruciating pain. Physical therapy became his new full-time job, with progress measured in inches rather than miles. But here's what made Atz Lee's story so compelling to his fans. Even from his hospital bed, even with his body shattered and his future uncertain, he found ways to inspire others. His social media updates became daily affirmations, sharing X-rays alongside messages of gratitude and determination. One post, shared exactly 1 year after his fall, captured his mindset perfectly. "This accident has truly humbled me. The past year has been the most challenging of my life, but I'm still here, still grateful, still surrounded by the love of family and friends. My injuries are healing gradually, there are many of them, but every small improvement reminds me how precious life really is." The accident forced Atz Lee to confront his mortality in ways that even a lifetime of dangerous living couldn't prepare him for. He couldn't hunt the way he used to, couldn't build with the same reckless abandon, couldn't film the death-defying stunts that made him famous. For someone whose identity was built on physical prowess and fearless adventure, this was more than an injury. It was an existential crisis. But as devastating as the fall was, it would prove to be just the beginning of Atz Lee's troubles. Because sometimes the most dangerous predators don't have claws or fangs. They have law degrees and badges. When reality TV meets real consequences, September 2014. 1 year before the life-changing accident that would nearly kill him, Atz Lee Kilcher was about to make a decision that would haunt him for years to come. What seemed like just another day of filming for Alaska: The Last Frontier would become the catalyst for legal troubles that would ultimately contribute to the show's demise. The setup seemed innocent enough. The Discovery Channel production team, led by Wilma TV, had planned an episode showcasing the Kilchers' traditional black bear hunting practices. For generations, the family had tracked bears through the Alaskan wilderness on foot, a dangerous, physically demanding pursuit that epitomized their self-sufficient lifestyle. It was exactly the kind of authentic content that made the show so popular. But television production schedules don't always align with the realities of wilderness life. Bradley Lake, the remote location chosen for filming, would require a grueling multi-day hike through some of Alaska's most challenging terrain. For a production crew carrying thousands of dollars worth of camera equipment, that presented logistical nightmares. Someone, and to this day it's unclear exactly who, suggested an alternative: helicopter transport. In most states, this wouldn't have raised any red flags, but Alaska isn't most states. The Last Frontier has some of the strictest wildlife protection laws in America, born from decades of battles between conservationists and those who would exploit the state's natural resources. The use of aircraft for hunting isn't just frowned upon. It's a criminal offense punishable by significant fines and potential jail time. Here's where the story gets complicated because, according to later court testimony, Atz Lee wasn't just a passive participant in this decision. The producers pressured him to participate, but he wasn't ignorant of Alaska's hunting regulations. During a later interview with Alaska State Trooper Trent Trilkowski, Atz Lee admitted that he had specifically warned the production team that helicopter hunting was illegal. "I told them we couldn't use the helicopter for hunting," he would later testify, "but they kept pushing, saying it would work out, that we needed to get the footage." This reveals one of the darkest aspects of reality TV production. The pressure to create compelling content can sometimes override common sense and legal boundaries. For Atz Lee, a man whose entire public persona was built on respect for nature and traditional ways of living, agreeing to the helicopter hunt represented a fundamental compromise of his values. The helicopter flight to Bradley Lake took place on a crisp September morning in 2014. The pilot, unaware of the hunting plans, as company records would later confirm, transported the Kilcher family and production crew to the remote location, under the assumption this was purely a scouting expedition for the show. What happened next would be broadcast to millions of viewers in January 2015 in an episode titled Fall Bear Fall. The footage showed Atz Lee and other family members tracking and eventually taking aim at a black bear, dramatic television that perfectly captured the raw adventure viewers expected from the show. But someone was watching who shouldn't have been. The whistleblower was a Homer local who had been hired by Wilma TV as a set medic for the production. According to Alaska State Trooper spokeswoman Megan Peters, this medic became suspicious when Wilma TV specifically instructed him not to inform the helicopter company about the hunting component of the trip. The medic ultimately refused to participate in the production and contacted Trooper Trilkowski with his concerns about the September 2014 expedition. When Trilkowski watched the Fall Bear Fall episode months later, the pieces clicked into place. The dramatic footage of the Kilchers hunting bears matched perfectly with the medic's tip about illegal helicopter transportation. A quick call to the helicopter company confirmed their worst fears. They had indeed flown the hunting party to Bradley Lake, but had been kept in the dark about the true purpose of the trip. The investigation that followed was thorough and damning. Charging documents revealed that not only had Atz Lee participated in the illegal hunt, but the entire production had been built around circumventing Alaska's wildlife protection laws. Wilma TV's producers, when interviewed, shockingly admitted they had used float planes for hunting in previous episodes and believed using a helicopter would be the same and not an issue. This stunning display of ignorance, or willful disregard, for Alaska's laws revealed a troubling pattern in reality TV production. In their rush to create compelling content, producers had allegedly been cutting corners and bending rules for months or possibly years. Atz Lee's defense, presented by attorney Kevin Fitzgerald, attempted to thread a legal needle. They argue that while Atz Lee had been transported by helicopter, he hadn't actually killed a bear during that specific expedition. Sometimes even reality TV isn't what actually occurs, Fitzgerald argued, suggesting the episode had been edited to create drama that didn't match the reality of what happened. But Alaska's wildlife protection laws don't require successful kills to constitute violations. The simple act of using aircraft to transport hunters or hunting equipment to remote locations is sufficient for criminal charges. In legal terms, intent and outcome are less important than the action itself. During his court appearance, Atz Lee made the decision that would define the rest of this legal saga. He chose full cooperation over fighting the charges. Rather than mounting an expensive legal battle that could drag on for years, he acknowledged his role in the violation while explaining his perspective. "I didn't intend to break the law," he testified. "I thought we were just using the helicopter to scout the area, not actively hunting from the aircraft." It was a distinction that might have mattered in casual conversation, but carried no weight in Homer District Court. On February 16, 2015, Judge Margaret Murphy handed down a sentence that sent shockwaves through the reality TV world. Atz Lee was fined $1,500, while Wilma TV faced a much steeper penalty of $17,500. The financial impact was significant but manageable for a successful TV personality. The reputational damage, however, would prove far more devastating. For someone whose entire public image was built on authentic wilderness living and respect for Alaska's natural heritage, being convicted of wildlife violations was more than embarrassing. It was existentially threatening. Atz Lee had spent years positioning himself as a guardian of traditional Alaskan values, someone who understood and respected the delicate balance between human needs and environmental protection. The conviction shattered that carefully constructed image. Suddenly, fans began questioning everything they thought they knew about the Kilchers. If Atz Lee could compromise his values for television content, what other aspects of their authentic lifestyle were merely performances for the cameras? The Discovery Channel's response was telling in its absence. No public statements were issued defending their star or explaining the circumstances that led to the violation. Production continued, but something fundamental had changed in the relationship between the network and their flagship family. Perhaps most damaging of all was the silence that followed. Atz Lee's once active social media presence went dark for months. The man who had shared every hunting triumph and building project with his followers suddenly had nothing to say. When posts eventually resumed, they carried a different tone, more guarded, less confident, tinged with the weight of someone who had learned that even in Alaska's wilderness, the long arm of the law could reach anywhere. The case officially closed with the payment of fines and a promise to comply with all future wildlife regulations. But the real consequences were just beginning to unfold, setting in motion a chain of events that would ultimately bring down one of Discovery Channel's most successful reality shows. How? One case toppled an empire. The aftermath of Atz Lee's hunting violation conviction rippled through the Kilcher family and the production of Alaska: The Last Frontier. Like an earthquake through a glacier, slowly at first, then with devastating, unstoppable force. In the immediate wake of the February 2015 sentencing, the show continued production as if nothing had happened. The Discovery Channel's silence spoke volumes about their strategy: weather the storm, avoid drawing additional attention to the controversy, and hope viewers would forget about the legal troubles in favor of the compelling wilderness content they'd come to expect. For a while, this approach seemed to work. The show maintained solid ratings through 2015 and 2016, with many viewers either unaware of the hunting violation or willing to overlook it as a minor bureaucratic issue. After all, the reasoning went, what harm could come from using a helicopter to access remote hunting grounds? In the grand scheme of reality TV controversies, it seemed relatively minor. But Alaska is different. The last frontier state has a unique relationship with its wildlife and natural resources, born from decades of battles over oil drilling, mining, and hunting rights. For many Alaskans, wildlife protection laws aren't just bureaucratic requirements. They're sacred trusts designed to preserve the state's natural heritage for future generations. The conviction also highlighted uncomfortable questions about the authenticity of reality TV programming. If the Kilchers were willing to break hunting laws for better television content, what other aspects of their supposedly authentic lifestyle were manufactured for the cameras? Fans began scrutinizing episodes with newfound skepticism, looking for evidence of other compromises and shortcuts. Meanwhile, Atz Lee was struggling with the personal fallout from his conviction. Friends and fellow hunters in the Homer community, people whose respect he had earned over decades of responsible outdoor living, began treating him differently. Some were understanding, recognizing the pressures of television production. Others were less forgiving, viewing his actions as a betrayal of the values he claimed to represent. The psychological impact on Atz Lee became increasingly evident in his rare public appearances and social media posts. The confident, larger-than-life personality that had made him a television star was replaced by someone more cautious, more defensive. He began addressing critics directly in social media posts, defending his actions, picking up the pieces of a shattered legacy. The end of Alaska: The Last Frontier left behind more than just disappointed fans. It created a complex web of personal, professional, and financial consequences that the Kilcher family continues to navigate today. For Atz Lee, the transition from reality TV star to private citizen has been anything but smooth. The man who had once shared every aspect of his life with millions of viewers now maintains an almost hermit-like silence. His social media presence, once filled with inspiring wilderness photography and motivational messages, has dwindled to occasional posts that reveal little about his current circumstances. Friends of the family describe Atz Lee as still recovering from multiple traumas. The physical injuries from his cliff fall, the emotional devastation of his divorce, and the psychological impact of losing the public identity that had defined him for over a decade. The chronic pain from his accident continues to limit his physical activities, making it impossible for him to return to the death-defying lifestyle that made him famous. Financially, the end of the show has created significant challenges for the entire Kilcher family. Reality TV stardom had provided a level of income that made their subsistence lifestyle economically viable. Without that income stream, maintaining the vast homestead and supporting multiple family members has become increasingly difficult. Jane Kilcher has shown remarkable resilience in rebuilding her life after the divorce. She has returned to her roots as a commercial fisherwoman and has become more active on social media, sharing glimpses of her new independent life. Her posts often feature her daughter Piper and her musical pursuits, suggesting she's finding ways to rediscover her identity beyond her role as Atz Lee's wife. The broader Kilcher family has scattered in different directions. Some members have attempted to capitalize on their remaining fame through appearances on other reality shows and social media influencing. Others have retreated from public life entirely, focusing on the traditional homesteading activities that sustained their family long before television cameras arrived. The Alaska homestead itself remains in the family, but its future is uncertain. Maintaining 600 acres of remote property without the income from television production presents enormous challenges. Property taxes, maintenance costs, and the basic expenses of wilderness living require resources that are increasingly difficult to generate through traditional homesteading activities alone. Perhaps most significantly, Atz Lee's legal troubles have had lasting impacts on how reality TV productions are regulated in Alaska. The state has implemented stricter oversight of television and film productions, particularly those involving wildlife activities. What happened to Atz Lee serves as a cautionary tale for other reality shows, leading to more careful legal review of all production activities. The case has also contributed to broader conversations about the ethics of reality TV production. Industry critics point to Atz Lee's hunting violation as an example of how the pressure to create compelling content can lead to compromising legal and ethical boundaries. The incident has been cited in academic papers and industry publications as evidence of the need for stronger oversight of reality TV productions. For fans of Alaska: The Last Frontier, the show's ignominious end represents a form of collective grief. Many viewers had invested emotionally in the Kilcher family's story, seeing them as representatives of values and lifestyles they admired. The revelation that even the Kilchers couldn't maintain their idealized existence has left many questioning their own beliefs about self-sufficiency and authentic living. The show's reruns continue to air on various cable networks, creating the surreal situation where new viewers are still discovering the Kilcher story, while the family themselves have moved on to very different realities. These reruns serve as a time capsule of a family and a lifestyle that may have never been as authentic as they appeared, but nevertheless captured the imagination of millions of viewers. Looking back, Alaska: The Last Frontier can be seen as both a celebration and a cautionary tale about the American dream of self-sufficiency. The show succeeded because it offered viewers a vision of life free from modern constraints, but it failed because even the most committed wilderness families cannot completely escape the pressures and regulations of contemporary society. Atz Lee's story, in particular, serves as a reminder that reality TV fame comes with costs that aren't always apparent to viewers. The pressure to maintain a public persona, the constant scrutiny of personal choices, and the need to perform one's life for entertainment can exact a toll that extends far beyond the camera's reach. Today, as streaming services and social media create new forms of celebrity and new pressures for authentic content, the rise and fall of Atz Lee Kilcher offers important lessons about the intersection of private life and public entertainment. The legacy of a fallen frontier hero. As we reach the end of this extraordinary story, it's worth reflecting on what Atz Lee Kilcher's rise and fall tells us about fame, family, and the price of living authentically in an increasingly artificial world. When Alaska: The Last Frontier premiered in 2011, it arrived at a perfect cultural moment. Americans were growing increasingly disconnected from nature, concerned about their dependence on modern technology, and hungry for examples of authentic self-sufficiency. The Kilcher family offered all of that and more. They were living proof that it was still possible to thrive using traditional skills and values. Atz Lee became the embodiment of that dream. His fearless approach to wilderness challenges, his evident love for his family and land, and his apparent rejection of modern society's compromises made him a hero to millions of viewers. He represented everything many people wish they could be: independent, capable, and free. But as we've seen, that image came at an enormous cost. The pressure to maintain the perfect wilderness lifestyle for television cameras led to compromises that ultimately destroyed the very authenticity the show was meant to celebrate. The illegal hunting incident wasn't just a legal violation, it was a betrayal of the values Atz Lee claimed to represent. The physical and emotional toll of maintaining his public persona through a near-fatal accident and lengthy recovery process proved unsustainable. The constant scrutiny of his personal life, including his marriage and family relationships, created pressures that no relationship could withstand indefinitely. Perhaps most tragically, the very success of Alaska: The Last Frontier made it impossible for the Kilcher family to live the simple, private life they had originally sought in the Alaskan wilderness. Fame, even fame built on rejecting modern society, comes with modern society's baggage. Legal scrutiny, financial pressure, and the constant need to perform one's life for public consumption. Atz Lee's story is ultimately a cautionary tale about the impossibility of escaping the modern world, even in Alaska's most remote corners. The laws, regulations, and social pressures that govern contemporary life reach everywhere, and even the most committed traditionalists cannot completely opt out of the systems they claim to reject. But his story is also a testament to human resilience and the ongoing appeal of authentic living.